Today we're so excited to have Cindy with us in our brand new Wave studio. Cindy, thank you for joining me today.
Of course, my pleasure.
So what do you do at New Wave?
At New Wave, I am the operations lead on Sundays, and then also recently a life group leader.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about what the operations team does at New Wave.
Yeah, so on Sundays, that's where we really come in and we do a lot of behind the scenes work, a lot of the things for communion when it's the first of the month, a lot of the attendance work, and then just making sure that logistically it runs smoothly. And we also help with the welcome team where we welcome newcomers and just say hi and just make everyone feel like they're situated at New Wave.
Awesome. I think what you guys do is so important. We couldn't do service without you, so thank you so much for that.
No problem.
I think it just in passing and serving together, I got to know you a little bit. And I found out that you actually work in the food industry, maybe more specifically nutrition. So maybe you can tell me, like, on a high level, what do you do in the food and nutrition world?
Yes. So it has shifted a lot. So nutrition, I studied nutritional science with an emphasis on education. And then it kind of shifted where I worked with culinarians and then at Bon Appetit at Google. And then I worked a lot with recipes and chefs and really testing recipes and tasting recipes and then standardizing them. So I've done a lot with that and then making sure that we have like all of the healthy components of it. But then now I shifted a lot to community work and nutrition.
So working for Bon Appetit, that sounds really, really cool. When you mean like working with the chefs to like standardize, what does that mean? Is it because there's so many different campuses and you need to make sure all of the food that comes out has a certain like macro or micro like quantity to it, or?
Sort of. So we just try to make a lot of it about vegetables as the main plate and then meat and protein just really as a condiment. But we do have a child nutrition program, and that's something we've done in the past where we have to make sure everything is labeled with allergens and then making sure that they have a whole nother set of requirements.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
yeah.
you worked with both just the normal and also the child diet development, I suppose.
A little bit, yeah. So then we also do a lot with like the snacks because we have like what they call micro kitchens.
Yes.
People go in when they're like in a slump and then they go get snacks. So we make sure we also source from a lot of local vendors. That was something that we used to do.
Very cool. So that was your past life at Google, and now you mentioned you have transitioned on. So what do you do now with food and nutrition?
So I am a program manager now at Second Harvest of Silicon Valley, and I know our church partners with them a bit. And for me, I don't really focus on the grocery program, but more on the meals, snacks, and the residential programs. I help them get things that they need and then really advocate for them. So for example, we have a big unhoused population in the Bay Area. So then that's something we like, okay, well, they don't have, they can't open or like they can't cook things at home. So we have to advocate for different things, food specifically for them. Yeah.
And how do you find out what it is that they need? Do you have to do groundwork? Like, I think that's super interesting when you met the unhoused. I feel like it's like a wild world out there. So how do you get that information?
Definitely going in person.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of partners who work with the unhoused, some big ones down in South Bay. And then we partner with them a lot. So they tell us like, hey, there's like groups of them here and like encampments and there's things that they need that we can't get for them. Can you help us? And that's something that we do. So, for example, like some things we learned that hard fruits, like we don't really think about it, but it's not something they would want to eat because a lot of them just can't have those items. So bananas and soft breads, things like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in addition to like the unhoused, like what are some of the other groups that maybe would you would work with to advocate for?
So we also have a snack program, which is like after school programs. They get food from us, and then also like residential programs. And then residential meaning lots of different things like domestic violence. People like go into these housing or substance user and they're recovering. They go into these housing places, and there's lots of interesting things with food that we found out, like with the residential folks, because a lot of them are trying to get off of substance. So something that has helped them is like power drinks, Gatorade or like Powerade, and that's something that we found is really helpful for that section of the community.
Oh, that's so interesting. And so a lot of these partnerships, are they just on an individual level, or you work with other organizations in the city? How does that work out?
It's so our bigger organization is Feeding America, and then that's where most of the food banks fall under. And then we partner with a lot of different people, especially people that have the capacity, like us here at River of Life, where we have that pantry program. And then Second Harvest would do the grocery side. And then partners also, they can do grocery programs too, if that's something they want to focus on.
Got it. So you transitioned from Google to a nonprofit, Second Harvest. What made you want to do that? I feel like most people go from maybe nonprofit to corporate, and then most people don't go into nonprofit until like way later in their life, around their 60s. So what was that catalyst for you that made you feel like you want to try something new and then go into that nonprofit sector?
Yeah, it took a lot of time for me to think about it. The for-profit world, it was, I would say, cushy. The job was really great. Like, there were a lot of benefits. I don't have to go out to a gym. There's a gym here on campus. There's food, baristas. But then I think there's a lot of different things. I started feeling like going in, oh, okay, maybe I don't feel as fulfilled as I thought I would be. And I think I got into a certain point where I was like, okay, maybe there's something more I want to do, especially with like community work. I don't think I was able to experience it with the population I was serving, the Googlers I was serving. So I think that was something I missed. And so I thought a long time about it. And then I decided to go back to school.
Oh, wow.
For my Master's of Public Health. And it was just like really quick. Like after I finished my program, I think God opened a door for me and was like, there's this job opportunity here. I applied for it, and that was a Second Harvest job, and everything went really quickly from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is, you mentioned that you have like, a passion for, I guess, serving the community and just something greater than just the normal. Where did that passion come from, I guess, to serve the community in the way that you do?
For me, I think in high school, my goal in like my career goal, I always thought I would want to work for like the UN and like the FAO, the food portion of it. And I think I started going to, a few years ago, I went on a mission trip to Thailand, and we went to this far off northern village tribe. And it was like, I think like 2-3 weeks, and where we were just like living with them and like being with the village for 24/7. And I remember the story like very specifically, and this will tie back, but it was like my birthday around that time, and the people, they like so let me backtrack. We were having very bland like food throughout the whole time, and then on my birthday they like killed a chicken that they were farming, and then they like made this amazing fried chicken, and I think it's like the best fried chicken I had to date. And they like brought it out for my birthday. Like they brought a cake, and then I was just like super super touched, because I'm like, oh well, I don't know how long you've been like growing this chicken. Like it's just like a very small thing, but I think like welcoming like our group into the community was it was just like an automatic thing they were thinking about. Like, so I think I want to build that like sense of welcoming others and helping others in the community here. Yeah, and I don't even know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, no, it did. I think a lot of times what we go through in life really like, kind of determines where we go after. And it's a lot of times these kinds of pivotal moments where it does touch your heart that makes you kind of know what you want to do or where you want to go.
Yeah.
Where did your like passion for food come from? Like, where did that come from? Food and nutrition, because I feel like that's so specific. And I mean, in this world now, like I think it's so important. So many people like care about that, but I think most people, that's not the initial track, right? So where did that come from for you?
Food and I guess a lot of traveling. My dad used to travel a lot, and he would always like take me with him or bring back stories and photos. I think he was like the OG Instagrammer. Like he would take photos of all his food and like his hotels and things like that. But I think traveling and like just experiencing different cultures has made me more have a better appreciation of food. And then I think nutrition just really came from the health of my family. I think my dad had some like health things. I'm like, okay, let me look into this some more. And then it was just really interesting, like that world of nutrition. And it sounds like nutrition has been out here for a really long time, but it's still like a relatively new science. That's what we would used to say when we were doing it. Just because like even now there's always like new things coming up. Like how do you manage like lab grown meats or like things like that? How do you, yeah.
I know it's a totally interesting world. I mean, even with my personal like weight loss journey or my pursuit of that, like I've also learned like what a big part like nutrition plays, and even just on that in that realm, there's just so many different trains of thoughts that have to go with nutrition. So it's really interesting. What is something that you like that you've like discovered about nutrition that most people don't know that you wish that they knew?
Oh, there's so many things. For my allergen folks out there, peanut is not a nut, it's a legume.
I did not know that.
Yeah, my friends with peanut allergies, they're like, it's not a nut, it's a legume.
And for those that don't know what a legume is,
it's like in the same category as like beans and like, mostly like a lot of beans, and like you wouldn't really think of it because peanut, but I worked with a lot of allergy related work back in my day.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so your love of, or I guess your passion and your start into food and nutrition started just because of your dad, and just wanting to create like a better lifestyle for everybody around you.
Yeah, mostly because my dad, I think like they didn't really know what nutrition was when I was going into it in undergrad. They're like, so you're going to be a doctor? Like this is a doctor route? I'm like, no, like I'm going to do nutrition education. But then I just like really fell in love with it. Like there's a lot of different things you can do with nutrition. At first I thought I had to be in the clinical route, like go into work in a hospital. But after this, like when I was working at Google, I'm like, oh, there's so many other jobs that we can do with this, like not just the community work, but there's like if you want to go into personal consulting, you can do that, advertising, and it was I had an internship with a consulting company for a little while, and they work with these big companies and their goals of like, okay, how can we be more nutrition focused or forward. So there's a lot of different things you can do with nutrition.
Do you think in America, like we're doing a good job with nutrition? Like, are we being taught the right things or no?
I would say we're doing okay. We're not doing the best. There's a big thing, I think, with diet culture that is, I would advocate for this. And like, I think some people have heard me say that I don't believe in diets, and I don't think I think you should listen to your body. Like every person's body is different, and I'm just listening to your body, and there's things that work for some people and may not work for others. So that's a big debate in the nutrition world too. Even within the registered dietitian.
For sure. And then what does healthy nutrition kind of look like? I mean, we're taught, I guess, like, are carbs really that bad for you? Like, are there such things as like good carbs, bad carbs, etc.? What does like a healthy nutrition look like for a person? Even though it depends on like what their body says, and everybody's different.
Yeah. I guess.
Should we live by that 2,000 carbs rule? Like 2,000 calories is that also like?
No, it may not be. It might be more for people and maybe less for people. And there's this thing where we're talking about unhealthy foods and healthy foods. This is a good food. This is a bad food. Like, I think there's labels that we may not need to use for foods. Like maybe like even sugar, like yes, it's sugar, but like it gives you energy, it gives you joy. Okay, have some.
Yeah.
And like I think nutrition world, they always talk about moderation, and people like roll their eyes a little when they say like everything in moderation, but it's true. I think, yeah, and I think like that labeling of like good foods versus bad foods, it's something that I would like to see like kind of switch in the future.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're too restrictive, it actually it's counterintuitive, right, to what your body
Yeah.
actually needs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So what are some of your, like, in you choosing the path of like food and nutrition? Like, I wonder, now, you did the transition into doing nonprofit work, which is something that's more for your heart and like something that is giving back to the community. What are your dreams and aspirations in terms of food and nutrition, and where do you want that to go?
Mm, I well, for food and nutrition, I think I want to continue working at where I'm at right now. I still see a lot of work to be done. Long term, I would love to like take ownership of some kind of program, and like help lead and build a new program. And I don't know what that looks like now. I think my dream was always to do something international, but now that I'm working at a food bank specifically in the Bay Area, I just see there's still so much that we can do here. So I don't know exactly where it will lead me, but I think like food and nutrition is something that I'll be doing for the rest of my life.
How can the average person, like, say, for example, I'm listening to you talk about like programs that are still needed and so much more that we can do. What does that mean? Like, what does that look like in terms of what we can do, or some of the programs that like could use a little bit more light for people to get involved in?
That's a good question. I think the unhoused that I was speaking about, they are like a huge need. I think as we continue to grow in Silicon Valley, it's the unhoused population is also going to increase. So like finding ways we can like help build and like help them find a way of living in the Bay Area. I think I mean, food is one issue, but I think there's also other things. There's like living, and the root cause I think really is like the poverty. Yeah. So I think if there's ways we can come together as a community, and I don't really know the answer to how that looks like. I think it comes in different ways, but that's something that I think a lot of places are trying to figure out too.
Amazing. And then you mentioned that you used to want to work for the UN. Tell me about that. I think that's fascinating. Like I know many people who are like, oh, I want to do this. I want to go work internationally, but like UN is very specific. Like why?
Yes. I think my dream of traveling is one. I think that was something like I want to be immersed, like fully immersed in like a community. And I think they do a really good job of like putting people on the ground and doing that groundwork. And they're able to have the resources to do that. I think that's something that I would have to keep in mind in the long run. But I think as I got older, it's a little difficult. I think now that I'm married, like a lot of these jobs for the UN, you have to be overseas in that posting for like 6 months to like 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if I would be able to like do that now in this stage of my life. And I think that's okay. And I think that's something that, yeah, because I have found this role, I think I'll always keep my eyes on the UN to see what they're doing and things like that. But yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, are there programs that like are associated with the UN where you just go and either feed people or do things along those lines?
Yeah, I think so. I think like a lot of research work, a lot is, I guess the environmental thing is another issue. Like we're just going around on all these topics, but I think as we're starting to have more natural disasters and like you have to figure out like, okay, where are we going to grow this food? Like this is a drought area, or there's too many natural disasters here to grow anything. So I think that's something that they are figuring out. And I mean, the world's always evolving, so there's always work to be done there.
Yeah. So this is so interesting to me because I feel like we started talking about food and nutrition, but what I'm kind of feeling is that your passion is really just to be able to help, like, I don't even know what the politically correct term is, but just like to help those that like are in need, right? Whether it's in our local community or international. Is that right? Like the root of your passion?
Yeah, local.
Local, yeah, local, exactly. Global and local, if you guys don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think I'm still figuring it out. I'm still like
Yeah.
shaping up like what I really want to do, and I'm just taking it really one step at a time right now.
Yeah. No, that's so incredible. For people that feel like they want to take part in just helping the community in that way, what are some suggestions that you have for people to get involved?
Though the food bank is always one way. We always need volunteers to either pack the boxes and or be at distributions to give the food to actual clients. So there's always a need for that, and they'll continue to grow. We have partners who serve like congregate meals, and as COVID is starting to sort of get back to like normal times, they're starting to meet in person. So I think like people serving food or cooking the food is always needed. And yeah, there's just so many organizations around this area that like work with kids, or specifically like the unhoused I talked about, or things like that that are always needed for volunteers. I think there's always looking for people. They're always looking for people.
Awesome. Give us one last thought about food and nutrition.
One last thought. Oh gosh, one,
Two.
I don't know. Well, I think, yeah, food and nutrition, there's always going to be things changing. There's always going to be new science and things that come up. But I think people who struggle with with food, I think really I can't emphasize enough like listening to your body. And I think like there's this guilt around food sometimes for a lot of people, especially in America. And I think like enjoy it, enjoy food. It's like where you build community. It's like food is where like a lot of good conversation starts. I think just don't worry so much about it, and just enjoy the moment, enjoy the food. There's always going to be great dishes, and sense of community around it all the time.
That's so great to hear, because I think that's actually surprising for me to hear from somebody who is in nutrition, to be like, hey, actually relax, enjoy all the food. So I think that's really great to hear. What is your approach for food in your like personal life with like you and your husband? Like, how does that look like in your home? And is he as much into nutrition as you are, or?
He loves pizza. So Nathan, he loves pizza. We had to kind of work our like, I don't know, what we cook for the week as we learn to like mesh our diets together. I'm definitely a person who is more plant-based, and I still eat meat. I love seafood, and it's really more like a side. It's not really the main dish, and I can totally be okay being pescatarian. But he loves his meat, and I think we had to work around that. So working on the menu, but I think for us, it really works out where we just go shop together, and then like, we just meal prep.
Does he cook? Like, I'm also more of a pescatarian. I actually don't eat red meat, just from choice, not because of any reason. I just don't like the taste. But does he have to cook his own meats since you're more plant-based, or do you actually cook that for him?
I do cook. Cook it for him. I wouldn't say I'm the best at cooking animal protein. I'm okay, like with chicken and beef, that's fine. Like lamb and stuff is not my thing. Like duck, I don't know. But like seafood, I could be a pescatarian if I really wanted to be.
Yeah. Awesome. And I just want to touch on, we were talking about this before we hit record, but you also like baking. So I just wanted to ask you, because you made the most amazing matcha strawberry cookies last Christmas. How did you make it so like gooey?
Undercooking it a little bit. I think the sugar helps with it. Like putting the sugars before you bake it, and then undercooking it a little bit. But I think it's just the dough, and I could give you the recipe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us today, for talking to us about food, nutrition, and your passions for it.
Yeah, of course. No problem. It's really my pleasure. This is great.
Thank you.